It's time to see what new original idea Pixar has cooked up this time in the library. They asked for our leader. They got him. Okay, but for real, it's a disgrace that a Pixar movie this original and charming flopped hard at the box office. I was expecting it to gain at least some strong momentum. But despite being better than other modern Pixar movies, this is an original movie that will probably be forgotten about years from now. Compared to some of Pixar's best movies, this definitely pales in comparison to them. However, that doesn't mean this movie isn't very good. It's actually really good fun and kinda does prove that Pixar can still give it their all even if they are playing it safe with an original movie rather than a sequel to a big IP franchise like Toy Story or The Incredibles. It's got some gorgeous animation, strong character development, and an overall well-developed premise that will link well to its targeted age group. So, what makes Elio an interesting original installment in Pixar's animated library? Why did it become such an underrated film of 2025? And how does it compare to other classic animated Disney movies? In today's movie review, I'll be talking about Pixar's 2025 original, Elio. Does it orbit Pixar to high levels, or does it orbit Pixar to low levels? Let's find out. Starting with good points, as with many of Pixar's classic/modern movies, the animation is absolutely gorgeous. This is the greatest that Pixar has looked compared to the earlier years. The visual effects during those scenes taking place in outer space are just a spectacle to look at, and the characters are very much inspired by this movie's imaginative world building for its ideas. The lighting is balanced out as well, making sure that it neither becomes too bright for the viewer's eyes, nor too dark so that it becomes barely visible. Using a great sense of special effects to make some of the values very realistic is just a treat. It definitely shows Pixar at its finest. I can tell you this, even if a Pixar movie is mediocre, you gotta praise it for its consistent streak of amazing animation. You simply can't say no to how gorgeous Elio looks. Despite taking ideas from earlier movies, it still delivers a majestic sense of wonder. Also for Pixar standards, the themes are pretty great with the film's targeted age group. Elio's feeling of loneliness, vulnerability, and the universal urge to find and belong in his place along the world is very well done. It makes his character more likable. There are plenty of other themes that are tackled really well here, as the said uses Elio's character, finding yourself, bullying, despite its overuse in some scenes which will be talked about later on in the video, and friendship vulnerability, sharing bonds between your friends. You've also got a good use of family as well, featuring the complex of plenty of dynamics with Elio and his aunt, Olga. This is actually explored a lot in the film as they find ways to thrive together despite the life changes between them. Lastly, leadership also plays a big part here, showing what it's like to be the leader by talking about the importance of being listened to and connecting, obtaining all the answers rather than already having them. Combine all of these themes together with strong character development to make Elio prove that Pixar still takes its time in making its characters memorable. To combine very well with its strong themes, the messages are also pretty good, such as empathy, self-acceptance, differences, courage, and communication. Even if you feel at a loss following the passing of some of your family members, you can still find a path to forge new relationships. Obviously, you have been grieving about the loss of one of your beloved family members, but you must also move forward and not think about it, as it makes the situation worse. As I mentioned about Elio's character, his whole journey is finding self-acceptance, ignoring his origin, and instead focusing on his actions slash feelings. You can see how he changed throughout the story. The connection of love is found within being somewhere. You must find your worthy position to be in. Basically put in some simple words. If you can't find a journey in this world, then you will never find yourself. Ignore the past. Embrace the future. That's how I would put it. As someone who's growing up into young adult life, this is much needed for me, as it reminds me of my young life and eventually shows how to embrace it as we move along. The characters that this movie shares are really likable, and they have plenty of chemistry between each other, as well as their development. Elio is an easy shout out. All the film's themes slash messages are found inside him. Not just the film itself, but his entire character reminds younger viewers, as well as viewers growing up, of the true meaning of belonging somewhere in the world. He gets more fun to watch when he eventually befriends an alien named Glodin. That was fun to watch. In this state, it's easy to figure out why they all have each other's backs. It plays it safe so that it can allow its cutesy charm to surround its environment. And also Elio's relationship with his aunt Olga is another easy highlight. It's pretty heartwarming to see how the relationship grows throughout the film, even after Elio is replaced with a clone of himself on Earth. But anyway, all the aliens were also nicely portrayed, and I liked their wacky attitude, showcasing what they truly look like within their nature. This adds up to the amount of fun for children of all ages. Lastly, this movie manages to have a charming tone which adds some nice touches for all ages. It has colourful visuals for those looking for extra attention to detail from Pixar, humorous moments that are worth a laugh, which is expected because every Pixar movie needs a good sense of humour that isn't forced, especially in a setting that isn't taking itself so seriously, and some action-packed, fast-paced scenes for all the viewers. They look really nice, with a decent amount of chase sequences, and the final one with Lord Grigan. It blends dark moments with lighter moments, effectively giving it its official structure in all of its settings. This is exactly what makes a Pixar movie feel like one. It needs emotion, a good sense of humour, decent pacing, plenty of decent climaxes that aren't as intense for its targeted age group, and plenty of strong themes and messages that parents can relate to, or even young adults growing up. That's what this movie gets right. Pixar needs to be more creative with its original movies, rather than consistently milking some of its beloved original IPs. My only real criticism of this movie is that it's way too intense for a kids movie. I do get that Pixar needs to take their films in a little bit more of a mature direction plenty of times so that it can benefit itself even more with its audiences, but this one feels like it's the darkest of the bunch. Plenty of action sequences are way too intense, and the main antagonist as well as his design slash voice will scare some younger viewers. Horror elements are visible. There are plenty of disturbing moments, all of which do not bond well for a PG movie, and the themes, while still really great, tackle ones that might not be suitable for some, which include remembrance of death, bullying, and the military culture is a bit much. The science fiction vibe does work well for preschoolers, but having a little bit of military thrown in will not sit in very well. It will confuse the kids watching. If a Pixar movie wants to be this strong with its death to hold it back from losing its identity, it needs to have a good sense of emotion that's touching enough to relate to all viewers, and have its action move at a slower pace so it doesn't turn into a visual spectacle that's typical for movies like this. Without them, this movie will struggle to find its footing as a true Pixar original. Elio is a really solid animated movie, though it's carried hard thanks to the continued spectacle of Pixar itself. For 2025 standards, it definitely delivers on the goods as much as any other one released this year. The animation is absolutely gorgeous as always, and just as what we'd expect from Pixar at this rate. The themes are pretty strong as well as the messages that can be easily found by adults. The character development is great as the film loads some very likable characters. The world building is imaginative considering that this film's animation uses it at the very maximum, and the tone is very charming, blending its great elements with its signature genres. The only drawback is that it's a bit too intense for a kids movie. It should have gone in the direction of earlier original Pixar movies that we used to get back in the 2000s. But otherwise, this movie was definitely good, and it's way better than its box office performance, in which this movie massively flopped with its budget and lower box office returns, meaning that we are definitely not getting a sequel, prequel, or a franchise, which this movie never needed since it closed the gap nicely from start to finish. Elio is a good Pixar original that will be most enjoyed by children growing up with space, but parents will get plenty of kick out of it, whilst being mildly amused by its tone. Elio doesn't orbit as high as some of Pixar's most imaginative ideas, but its charming tone, delightful characters, and brilliant world building will still abduct audiences of all ages. My final score for this animated movie is a 9 out of 10 and a grade A. It gets plenty of things right, but it needs to be more if this is the direction that Pixar wants to go in. I've always been a fan of space in general and its ancient history. This movie gave me plenty of it and also showed me the true meaning of aliens existing around us. It makes me think about what we have left in our lives and how we must cherish it for many years to come. But with that being said, leave a like on this video if you guys did enjoy my review on Elio, and also remember to subscribe if you are new and hit that bell icon to see more content on my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all later. Take care of yourselves.